This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. hanging out here with you. And, of course, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much once again for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, Niners UDFA grades. I want to grade the undrafted free agents who San Francisco signed in the aftermath of the 2025 NFL Draft. A very interesting draft class for San Francisco in this draft class, and they pick up 5 straight players off the rip, all on the defensive side of the football, all with impressive athletic traits, all good against the run. And it was a defensive-heavy draft because San Francisco is really trying to remake that unit. I had some issues with only taking one offensive lineman, but Connor Colby, a player who we'll talk about here in just a moment, a really good, experienced player from Iowa who's extremely athletic. And so this Niners defense is going to be remade. Headlined by Mykel Williams, who I think is a day one, week one starter. He has to be because that defensive line needs it to happen. The Niners as an organization need him to be ready. Freakish length, really good athlete, extremely powerful, awesome against the run. He can set the edge, but he has to get better in adding to his pass rush arsenal. Alfred Collins is a player who's 6'5", 330. He, too, a really good athlete for his size. He's awesome in stopping the run. A really sound scheme fit at defensive tackle in this wide 9 alignment, which sometimes is very difficult to find. Nick Martin, a speedy linebacker who will remind a lot of people, given his aggression, his play speed, his play style of an Azeez Al-Shaair and Dre Greenlaw. The Niners also defensively trying to bring back that identity that Azeez Al-Shaair, Dre Greenlaw were a part of, and Fred Warner and Deommodore Lenoir emulate. Upton Stout, a smaller corner. He doesn't shy away from contact. He can catch up with anybody, run with anybody, really good against the run, plays a lot bigger than his size. He'll remind a lot of people of Deommodore Lenoir. C.J. West, a shorter defensive tackle, but very explosive. And he can make offensive linemen miss and get past them in a blink. Jordan Watkins, 4.3 speed. He can track the ball well over his shoulder. A lot of people had him lower on their boards, but highly productive player at Ole Miss. After the injury to Trey Harris, he became Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin's number 1 wideout, and he passed that test with flying colors. Jordan James out of Oregon, a classic 49ers type of running back in this outside zone. Marquise Siegel, his role might be larger than what we thought when he was taken because of this ACL injury to Malik Mustafa. Curtis Rourke, 7th-round quarterback out of Indiana. He can make decisions very quickly. He can hang in the pocket, take hits. He is tough as nails and an old-school type of QB. Connor Colby, really experienced at Iowa, as I said. Good scheme fit for this zone defense or outside zone offense for Kyle Shanahan. What I like about him, how aggressive he plays, because he will drive defenders into the ground and try to finish those blocks. Of course, George Kittle, a big fan of his. They also share the same agent. Junior Bergen, wide receiver out of Montana, has been taken by the Niners in the 7th round as a player who will be a return specialist. Not going to be a part of the wide receiver room. According to Kyle Shanahan, he was one of the most dynamic and explosive return men throughout his entire career in the history of FCS football. As for this Niners UDFA class, which is pretty much the purpose of today's show because we're going to grade these players, Corey Kiner, a lot coming up on him here just around the corner. Isaiah Nayor, wide receiver out of Nebraska, who previously went to Wyoming and Texas. Massive size and a lot of speed. Drew Moss, a promising offensive lineman. Jakob Robinson, a cornerback out of BYU. Sebastian Valdez might be a diamond in the rough and a good scheme fit for this wide 9 and stopping the run. And then Stone Blanton. Not blazing fast, but he's a solid player at that linebacker spot who does have some diagnosing skills. So without further ado, let's grade these UDFAs and expand on these players. I'm very high on Corey Kiner. He's one of my favorite overall undrafted free agents after the 2025 draft. I truly feel as though he has a future in the NFL. He can make a roster, and he's ready to get carries right now. 23 years old, from Cincinnati, Ohio. He started his NFL career, or his college career, at LSU and then transferred to Cincinnati. He starts his NFL career, I should say, with the 49ers. And he's 5'8", nearly 5'9", 209 pounds. He's a stocky athlete who runs hard and is an old-school type of running back. 204 carries last year for the Bearcats, 1,100-plus yards, 4 touchdowns. And that throwback runner that a lot of our older audience members will appreciate because he runs with power, really good contact balance, especially with that lower half. He can bounce off defenders, and he's one of those running backs that became famous in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, low center of gravity, and he doesn't do a lot as far as catching the ball out of the backfield, but you give him the rock between the tackles, he's going to be able to pick up positive yardage. Athletic traits, a little bit of a question mark. The testing numbers certainly confirm that. Limited production in the passing game, as I noted, but in his last 2 years at Cincinnati, after he started his college career at LSU, ran for more than 1,000 yards in each season, averaged 5.5 yards per carry in 2023, 5.7 yards per carry in 2024. And some of these deep dive numbers are very impressive on Corey Kiner. For instance, when you compare him to some of the other top running backs in college football last year and or some of the other top backs who got drafted in this draft class, look at where he is. Missed forced tackles. Ashton Jeanty was number 1 with 125. Special player, right? He had more yards after contact last year than any other running back had rushing yards. That's why he went 6 overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. But Cam Scatterbo, a player who I know a lot of you like, I like, tied with Corey Kiner in missed forced tackles with 82. That's ahead of Omarion Hampton, who went in round 1. Elusive rating per Pro Football Focus. Ashton Jeanty, number 1 at 217.6. Guess who's number 2? Corey Kiner at 163.8. Bashal Tutin, he also got drafted. How about the Pro Football Focus rush grade? Omarion Hampton, Devin Neal, 90.5. R.J. Harvey went early in the draft, 89.5. Corey Kiner, UDFA, 88.3. Yards after contact per attempt. We talk about contact balance, being able to pick up yards after contact, being able to maintain footing, bounce off of defenders. This is that right here. Omarion Hampton, number 1 at 4.35. DJ Giddens, another player who got drafted, 4.16. And Corey Kiner at 4.12. We're not done. He ranked 9th in explosive runs of 10-plus yards and designed runs at 15-plus yards. He ranked 12th in breakaway runs and ranked 8th in breakaway run rate. Now, of course, the athletic testing numbers were not great, and he ended up running just under a 4.6 40-yard dash. But look, Jordan James, who the Niners drafted in the 5th round out of Oregon, he ran a 4.5. And so it's not like he's that much faster than Corey Kiner. I think with the vision, with the power, with the decisiveness, with the ability to break tackles and pick up yards after contact, those types of traits are traits that the Niners look for in a running back. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kiner cracks this running back room on the 53-man roster. So with all of that being said, I'm going to give Corey Kiner an A grade here on this Niners UDFA grades segment. Then there's Isaiah Nayor. Very fascinating player. Started his college career at Wyoming. Then he transferred to Texas. Then he transferred to Nebraska. Played under Matt Rule. He's from Fort Worth, Texas. 23 years old. Was in college a little while. 6-year senior. This is where things get interesting. 6'4" and a quarter. Right around 220 pounds. And he ran a 4.4 40-yard dash in the pre-draft. He is an athletic freak. And the relative athletic score numbers certainly back that up. Unfortunately, though, he looks like Tarzan and plays like Jane. Tall wide receiver with vertical ability, an elite athletic profile, massive catch radius, doesn't maximize it. He plays small, and the production has not matched the traits in his college career. If you are 6'4", 220, running a 4.4 in college football, you should have better numbers than this. Final year in college, 34 catches, 455 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's promising. 2021, he had 12 touchdowns, 878 yards. He just never became the player that some people thought he could become. But you look back at the RAS score, 9.89 on a scale of 0 to 10. So elite as far as the height and the weight, the vertical, the broad, and then the 4.4 40-yard dash. So hopefully the Niners can bring that mean streak out of him, because if they can, he can be a very intimidating player for opposing defenses. So I'm going to go B grade here. A lot of potential, but we've just never seen it come to fruition yet. Who is your favorite Niners undrafted free agent? Let me know. Join the conversation down in the comments section right now. We always love hearing from the faithful. Plenty of Niners jerseys available, by the way, post-draft, thanks to our friends at Fanatics. If you want a Michael Williams jersey, I think he's going to be rocking the number 98. I like it. You can get it today at chatsports.com/49jersey. And then if you want an OG Niner or a really solid veteran, those jerseys are available too. You have special players like Christian McCaffrey, NFL Offensive Player of the Year in 2023. Brock Purdy going to get that contract extension soon. George Kittle, Nick Bosa, even the throwback OGs, as I mentioned. Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. All you have to do, use that link down below. chatsports.com/49jersey. And then Fanatics knows that Chase Sr., the 49ers Report, and Chat Sports sent you. Another player who I'm intrigued by is Drew Moss. And this is partially because the Niners only drafted one offensive lineman, and that entire group continues to be a big question mark. But this is a offensive lineman out of Colorado State who figures to be better as an interior offensive lineman at the NFL level if he can crack it there, who has an impressive body of work at Colorado State. He's from Richardson, Texas, 21 years old, little over 6'3", 303 pounds. The relative athletic score for him, very good, 9.28. Now, he graded poorly. You see the red there because of the height and the weight. I think the bench press numbers are fine. But how about some of the explosive numbers here? Vertical, broad, and then he ran a 5-second 40-yard dash at over 300 pounds. Good shuttle, good three-cone. In 2024, a 90.5 Pro Football Focus grade, a 92.5 run blocking grade, and his pass blocking efficiency, 98.8. I think that he could be a center at the next level. And in this Kyle Shanahan outside zone, you have to be able to snap the football and then get out on the run with some of these pull blocks. And you have to be comfortable out in space. Drew Moss is, and he's athletic enough to do that, and he's very experienced despite being 21 years old. 4-year starter at right guard and at right tackle. And so at Colorado State, they clearly saw the athletic traits there for him to play as a tackle at the NFL level. Shorter arms, he can get grabby. That's why he's better along the interior. But I'm going A grade here because the Niners pick up a hidden gem along the offensive line, a player with some fine-tuning and development who could find a role at the NFL level. Jakob Robinson, cornerback out of BYU. He is a player who this past year with the Cougars had 43 tackles, 3 picks. What I like, 8 pass breakups playing in the Big 12. It's a solid conference there, obviously. 5'10 and a quarter, 181 pounds. He ran very well prior to the draft. A 4.39 40-yard dash, 7.57 relative athletic score, 5'10", 181 in the poor section there, but the vertical, the broad, the 40-yard dash, some solid numbers there. I think the Niners are in a spot at that corner position where they drafted Upton Stout because they want to keep Diamador Lenore on the outside. You have Renardo Green on the other side. I think Upton Stout is going to be the starting nickel corner for San Francisco in week 1 potentially. Outside of that, there are some depth issues. And so we'll see where he lands here. I'm going to go B-. Sebastian Valdez, defensive tackle from Washington State. I've said this a few times here over the last few weeks, but it does ring true. When you run this wide 9, sometimes it's very hard to find defensive tackles and run stuffing defensive tackles. That's why the Niners have really struggled since losing DeForest Buckner and trading him away in a move that they should have never made. They got cheap on that move. That's why they've struggled since losing Eric Armstead. That's why last year with pass rushing defensive tackles like Javon Hargrave, who then got hurt, and Malik Collins, they really struggled. But Sebastian Valdez can occupy some real estate along the interior defensive line. He's from Spring Valley, California, almost 6'4", 301 pounds, 48 tackles, 5 TFLs, and 2 sacks. And what do you know? Another player who, prior to the draft, graded out well athletically, a 9.27 relative athletic score. The arms, a little bit shorter at just over 31 inches, but the 40-yard dash, 5.02 for almost 300 pounds. Pretty solid there. And then as an interior defensive lineman, you need to be quick, and you need to have short area burst. Well, sometimes you can look at the 20-yard split, the 10-yard split, the shuttle, and the 3-cone, and you can say, okay, that could translate to the next level. So Sebastian Valdez, as a thin position group along that defensive tackle spot, has a chance to compete for a roster spot. And if he can do it for cheap, as a UDFA, like Evan Anderson did last year, that deserves a good grade. I'm going A. And then there's Stone Blanton, linebacker, Mississippi State. Pretty experienced player at the college level. He's a little bit slow, almost 6'2", 227 pounds. He was a tackling unit last year for Mississippi State. 125 tackles, 4 TFLs, a half sack, and 2 forced fumbles. 2-year starter at inside linebacker with very good instincts, as I said earlier, but definitely has some athletic limitations. Blanton is quick to read keys and flows to the runner with good timing. He can slip blocks or stick and move during take-ons. However, his pursuit burst in space is below average, and he misses too many tackles. He can spot drop and feel receivers around him, but he's not much of a blitzer on passing downs. He has a high football IQ, but will need to prove himself on special teams to improve his chances of making a roster. To me, really, it sounds as though if Stone Blanton can make a 53, it's going to be as a special teamer first, and then you can build off the feel and the instincts, and maybe at some point he can help you with that linebacking core. The fact that he's not a blitzer, that's fine. If you can cover off ball, and if you can make plays against the pass, against the run, and if you can make up for a lack of athletic traits with football smarts, you can find a role in this league, especially because he's a 2-year starter from Mississippi State. That's a lot of experience. And so he's seen a lot of football, and it means that the learning curve isn't that drastic in going to the NFL level. The athleticism, though, could be, but that's why he could be a good special teamer. Rookie Minicamp Invites as a refresher: tight end Bentley Hanshaw from Liberty, linebacker Tristan Sinclair from Stanford, defensive back Jack Howell out of Colorado State, and then defensive end and linebacker Ty French from West Virginia. Be sure to hit that subscribe button here on the show. Hopefully you enjoyed today's Niners Report, and we'll catch you soon.